Hey, it's Melvin, one of your friendly neighborhood podcast hosts. Whether it's your first time tuning in or you're a longtime listener, consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever. Reviews are the lifeblood of the podcast world, so if you want to help us out, it'll take only a moment of your time. Otherwise, we hope you enjoy the show. You're listening to Cinematic Doctrine. Hey, if you just press play, you're missing out on pretty much 30 minutes of content. I did so well the last few episodes. I didn't say the C word. On stuff you can be tuning into and listening to. This 30 minutes is a horror-themed trivia game where my sister Cheryl is the host and then alternates between me and Kathryn asking us horror trivia. You get to listen to that if you support on Patreon for $3 a month. There's other benefits to supporting on Patreon for $3 a month, so you get access to that as well. You'll hear about those things throughout the episode as I cut those in during editing. But in the meantime, you press play not to hear me do a call to action, although those will be coming. You press play because you wanted to hear a Party Pleaser episode on Tower of Terror, a 90s movie from Disney. I can't remember if it was Disney. I think it's Disney Channel with the way that the film's edited. Mm-hmm. So one of their TV films that is not on Disney Plus. Yeah, it's 100% just not available to stream. As seems to be tradition whenever we do an episode on the podcast during October, I always pick movies that either you can only find on DVD or, as last year was, almost like a gag movie in the Haunted Mansion that had nothing to do with Disney. But we decided to do, which was a pretty fun movie. I like that one. Mm-hmm. But we decided we would have fun doing Tower of Terror this year, almost as an homage to last year's Haunted Mansion series. Party Pleaser episodes are super, super, super simple. You don't have to have watched the movie to keep up with it because we are going to summarize the film from start to finish. Shirleon did the summary for this one, so she's going to run us through that. And then as we're going through the summary, each of us will take time cutting in randomly whenever we have thoughts to share about the film, about what's going on, about even the ride or anything, because this is based on the ride. Very much so based on the ride. And yeah, so Party Pleasers are pretty fun in that way. And then at the end of it, each one of us will individually decide if we think the movie is a party pleaser or a party pooper for any reason whatsoever. There are no wrong answers, so that's just a ton of fun. But before we get into that, I have Cheryl here and I have Kathryn. What is going on, Cheryl?
Nothing much, just hanging out. I'm excited. I'm always excited to kind of join you, not kind of join you, but to actually join you, because all of me is here joining you to do a podcast. I am not a ghost.
Ghost would be cool though. And then what's going on, Kathryn?
I am here ready to talk about peak 1990s Disney Eisner era ghost movie with Kirsten Dunst for some reason.
Just like last year when we did the Haunted Mansion stuff, pretty much at the start of it, we decided to first start with our thoughts on the ride in brief. So let's go around. Kathryn, Tower of Terror, what do you think of the ride?
As it is in its natural state as the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror.
Yeah.
I like the ride. I've been on both the one on the West Coast and then also in Florida at whatever they're calling it these days. It's not MGM anymore.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's one of those rides where whenever I go, I want to ride it every single time. And I might even ride it multiple times. I'm a sucker for the design. It has really, really great design throughout the queue lines and throughout the different pre-show rooms. It does a great job of kind of bringing you back in time to the era in which this horrible event was supposed to happen, which is something goes wrong with the elevator. But I like the rides. It's one of my favorites, up there with some of the bigger rides like Big Thunder Mountain, Splash Mountain, Matterhorn, that sort of thing.
What about you, Cheryl?
Oh, it's the best ride ever. I still remember my very first experience when I went to Disney World with the grandparents when I was in 5th grade. And we got in line for it, and it horrified me. I panic attack levels of weeping, so that we went on. I didn't end up going on the ride the first time. going to Disney World. I went into the service elevator because I was just like, no, I do not want to go on this ride. So me and Grandma got on the service elevator, and of course I'm panicking the whole time because I'm like, this is still an elevator and this is an elevator ride. Is this going to be okay? And the cast member was very kind. They're like, no, it's going to be totally fine. Like this is a normal.
That's
like
very
everything is
cute.
fine. And we got off and we just waited. And then I think the very next time we ended up going to Disney, I was like, I'm gonna do this ride, and it's the greatest ride ever. It's so much fun. It's Mel and I's mom's favorite ride. Like, if she wants to have her ashes spread, should that be her
that's right.
burial wish, like,
Yeah.
we will spread her ashes there if that's what she wants. Like, that's how much she loves this ride. And it is
Totally
a lot of
forgot about
fun.
that.
I agree. The immersiveness of it is really nice, especially as you get a little bit closer to the hotel. Like, one of the things I definitely want to talk about with the movie is how well they got. Like, I assume they probably even filmed at the ride, but like, definitely, like, you can almost see where the queues are as you get like closer to the hotel, where you have like a little bit of the courtyard going on and everything. I mean, Disney is just so good at the immersion that it's not surprising that you definitely feel like you step back in time as you're walking through. It's just a lot of fun, and like the cast members get really into it. So if you are of the extroverted type and you like interact with the cast members, they'll interact with you as if they are like ghosts of the hotel and all that kind of stuff, and it's really fun.
You know, honestly, even if you're of the introverted type, I remember during one of my rides there, we go into the pre-show room where they close the library doors behind you and everything's pitch black, and the cast member was right behind me. The little bellhop tapped me on the shoulder. This like 12-year-old girl, and I freak out because it's pitch black.
Yeah.
And they were just like, it's just another day for me.
Just a ghost.
Yeah,
love it.
It's just a ghost. Don't worry.
They're looking around for their target, and they're like, yes. They mark you, and they're like, that's the one I'm going for.
Yeah, I really, really like Tower of Terror. You're talking about it being like this ride that's a thrill ride that, like, otherwise it's a type of ride you don't enjoy, but this one you love. I think, like, the fact that it has so much theming and in a positive way, sensory overload, because there's so many sounds, so many visuals, there's like practical effects, screens, and then of course also it's a drop tower, so you can look out at the primary and see like how fast you're dropping and how high you are. So like all of that like is just enough to be, it feels super safe. Plus it's also a drop tower that like fits so many people facing the same direction, which feels less isolating than drop towers where you're like surrounding a post. So you're just, it's like you and your friends basically sitting there. And then you also don't have the perpetual fear of, oh my gosh, what if these ropes break and they just whip my legs off and I never have my legs again. They hit the ground before I do. So like, it's just a really fun thrill ride for people who probably otherwise don't enjoy thrill rides. It's super well made. I think I remember hearing, maybe you mentioned this, Kathryn, that like the actual car in the ride, as it's dropping, the bottom has a mechanism to push itself like inside of itself, push itself down.
It's the way that the mechanism is, it pulls you down faster than you would naturally fall. So
yes,
it
that's what
makes it feel like way, way worse than it actually is. Something else cool about the ride vehicle is like it's built to go through the dark ride portion of the like Twilight Zone bits, and then it like clinks in to the mechanism for the drop tower that again is like way more secure than, you know, drop towers at like
probably most drop towers.
Like Six Flags.
Right.
Because it does have all that extra engineering and like the mechanism that makes it so you're actually falling faster than you normally would anyway.
It's just a good ride for going on once and then going on more than once, as opposed to some other rides. But anyways, I think Tower of Terror is a great ride. And I remember us as kids being kind of excited to watch this whenever it would be on Disney Channel. And of course it would be streaming. I don't know what it's called when it's on TV.
Whatever, yeah.
Broadcasting.
Broadcast,
yeah.
Because they're basically the same. It's just, I guess broadcast is more like wave based. But this would be broadcast and we would be pretty excited to watch it. Just because I said it on the podcast for years. Kids like spooky stuff. So Tower of Terror is kind of fun. And I remember wanting more of that. Hey, don't forget, there's a lot of fun content missing from this episode because you're not listening on Patreon. Head over to patreon.com/cinematic doctrine and support for $3 a month to gain access to uncut episodes with upwards of 40 minutes of bonus content each. You'll thank me later. So let's get into it. Let's get into the movie. Where do we start, Cheryl?
So we start back in 1939, and there's a big swinging party going on. But during that, like when it opens, like it tells you you're in 1939, there's like a person whispering some words in the background. Maybe Latin, could be a made up word, but doesn't matter. And then the invite to this party at the hotel burns. And then we go up to like where a bunch of people are dancing. I don't know the name of the composition, but it's one of my favorite compositions, the like swing music.
If it's the one you're thinking of, listener, it's that one. It's that jazz
exactly.
swing song. Yeah.
So we're introduced in a way to the different characters, all while a thunderstorm is happening, by the way. That is actually very important. I forgot. There's a thunderstorm happening. Everyone's getting ready for this party. We see a bellhop and an older gentleman. And then we see a nanny and a little girl come into the hotel amongst flashes of light and cameras and paparazzi and all that kind of stuff. And then we see another girl kind of panned over to the side. She looks a little sad. And then the nanny, the pink girl, as I labeled her at the beginning here, the little Shirley Temple-like girl, the bellhop, and then the older gentleman that the bellhop bumped into, and then a blonde-haired lady all get on the elevator together. The doors of the elevator close. They start to go up, and then at the 11th floor, at 8:05, lightning strikes, and then everyone disappears. And that's the beginning of the movie. Welcome to the Hollywood Tower of Terror was what I was going to say, but it's actually the Hollywood Tower Hotel.
And I like the start of the film. Going into like these types of movies, DCOMs or early even 90s DCOMs, is like the fear of production value. And like to start the film with like a bunch of extras, dancing, clever, the door opening way of you feel like you're entering into this party and you're going to walk around and watch people dance and music. That it's like, oh, okay, I think like this movie's probably going to be good. Like it's a good setup to what we're going to watch. And then also it kind of sets up the fact that like these characters are all trying to get to this party, and then right before they get there is when the elevator drops and they disappear. And like that's I just like that.
It's immersive. Like whenever you kind of walk into the room with the characters, you can feel the pressure of like the paparazzi. You can feel the looming presence of the nanny. The bellhop is very like impish is the word I thought of.
He's from Corn, though. That's why he's the child from the Corn.
He's the child from the Corn. I don't think that's true.
No, that's the actor.
I was gonna, but I was gonna make a joke about, he's just a transfer bellhop from the Grand Budapest. This is the worst bellhop exchange program in the world.
Yeah. Instead of firing, they're like, just send him to that other hotel over there.
But yeah, I thought it was a good setting. Parts of this movie were actually shot on like the ride. Yes. Like in the park.
Do you know if it was the West Coast or East Coast ride?
It was the Florida park. Whenever we have this opening scene, I can't quite tell if it's the soundstage or if it's bits and pieces of the actual ride.
I mean, we can just describe it now since we brought it up. But the outdoor scenes absolutely have to be in the ride. Yeah. When you see the building, when you see like I don't know, it's like Adobe like architecture outside. That they kind of constructed for like everything out there. But then the indoors, they do some clever shooting when the characters step inside where like the camera faces the doors outward. And then when it cuts to show them inside, what is inside just looks a lot bigger than what is from what I can remember, the line at the Florida ride. So I think that's when it's like a soundstage, but it also, I could be wrong. It's been a while since we've been there. So that's how we get started. Where are we now, Cheryl?
All right. We are now 60 years in the future. I think that's 93. Is that 93?
It's like 90s. Yeah.
Something. So we are introduced to Buzz and Anna, an uncle and niece duo. Buzz writes supernatural supermarket tabloid type stories like I got abducted by a UFO, there's a chupacabra kind of thing, and his niece helps him by like modeling in the different costumes and outfits like ghosts and this like alien creature and
he's
all that
a charlatan,
kind of stuff.
But he's very good at it.
I thought he was a dad, so he was a deadbeat dad for a little bit until I found it was an uncle. And she was the daughter until I realized it was a niece.
Part of the 90s canon of films where strange men hang out with like younger minor counterparts in like ways that like otherwise, like in the film is stupendously innocent, but in the real world makes you think.
Let's talk about this first.
Because Ernest Saves Christmas is another case of that, I think.
Yes.
And then there's totally a couple other movies that I'm blanking on.
You know, you ever notice how all the men are just wearing flannels? Was that just because it was the 90s, or is there something that
I think probably the 90s.
Although, speaking of 90s, all the fits that Kirsten Dunst has in this are supremely 90s. They're so oversized.
They are. I will say her one outfit I actually really liked. The overalls, and then she had like the crop top on underneath, and the belt went around the overalls, and it was a little baggy.
Yes.
I liked that look. That was a good look.
It was good fits in the 90s.
And then every outfit after that was like not very good, but that's just my own personal opinion.
They're very cozy.
They were like, they spent the budget on the good outfit, and they were like, yeah, just rewear his clothes. Okay.
I was gonna say, buddy, got quarters.
So as the doctor guy is so Buzz tells the doctor guy to leave. I'll call you later. Do I get paid? Blah blah blah. You did great. And the doctor's like, oh, cool, and shoves him out the door. And then the Buzz is on his way out the door, and Anna is like, don't you want to like actually write something real? Like, this is great and all, but like, don't you want to matter is basically what she's saying. And I can't remember his exact reaction, but I think he was like, yeah, it doesn't matter. And then whatever. He heads off to a news reporting place, I guess, that he used to work at. The lady there, Miss Perry, of whom I did not know what her name was until the very end of the movie, is like, don't tell him I'm here. Tell him to go away. He's like, look, I got this story. You want to do this? Like, I can tell you this. And she's just like, 5 years ago, I guess like 5 years prior, something happened. They definitely had a fling. They definitely had something. He messed up, lost his job, and now he's trying to get it back. She's like, no, don't do that. So he's like, fine. Buzz goes home. Old neighbor's like, I let your mom in your apartment. Neighbor, my mom's dead. Well, I let a ghost into your apartment. He goes in, and we meet Abigail Gregory, herefore now known as Abby. So Abby tells him, like, dude, I'm a fan of your writing. You believe all the supernatural stuff. I have a real story for you. So he sits and he listens, and it's the story of the disappearance that we see at the beginning of the movie. And she's like, I was there. Halloween is my birthday. These people disappeared. So now every time Halloween comes around, everyone's talking about this story, and it's really traumatic for me, and I want to figure it out. Help me figure this out. Write this story so we can find out what happened. I know who did it. I know who cast this spell. I know who made them all disappear. It's the nanny. She hated Sally, and Sally is the Shirley Temple girl, we find out. She's like, look, I have the basement key. Go check it out. Go see. You're going to see all the witch stuff that the nanny used to cast the spell, and then you can believe me. And she basically is like, this is really important. Don't you want to write an important story? And that's how she hooks Buzz.
And that gets his attention. So then he goes to visit. And this is when we get to finally see the actual Tower of Terror.
Yeah,
which
it's
I
pretty
really
cool
appreciated. How
he like walks around and all that kind of stuff. When he gets there, he hears a noise. It sounds like a dog kind of like snuffling in the background, but it's Q. I forget the dude's actual name, but he tells Buzz to call him Q. He's a big old fluffy guy.
Chris Todd is the character's name. Michael McShane is the actor.
Yeah, I like him. I thought it was pretty fun.
Well, and I thought it was very clever that he's like, oh, my nickname's Q. Everyone calls me Q. And Buzz and Q end up meeting in the queue for the Tower of Terror ride.
Oh my gosh, they totally
It's the outdoor
do.
setting.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. All this stuff is right over my head.
Peak 90s Disney.
There has to be like hidden Mickeys in this movie too.
Oh,
gosh, I can't even.
I'm sure.
All this stuff's over my head. Q though, that's clever. That's
that is
I didn't
good.
think of that at all. Enjoying this episode? Grab that share link and tell your friends. Word of mouth is the most effective way for a podcast to reach new listeners, so don't be shy. Share the episode wherever you can.
So Q's granddad owned the place, but was also the bellhop.
Yeah, wasn't that
great
interesting?
granddad. No,
So
the great granddad was the owner, and then the granddad was the bellhop.
Okay,
That's
didn't
what it
realize
was.
that.
Yeah.
His family owns the hotel, and he's related to the bellhop. That's all that really matters. According to the will, no one can touch the hotel until things are figured out. So until they figure out how these people disappeared, nothing can happen to the hotel. So Q is like, yeah, I want someone to figure it out because then I get the hotel and I get all this money.
Cha-ching.
But Q also won't go in because it's haunted. So he hangs out perpetually in the outdoor queue line is where Q is.
I can't believe I missed that.
And
Me too. I'm kind of bummed.
and you look at this guy. He's wearing like a 3-day-old chili cheese fry T-shirt with a Hawaiian button-up over top, and I'm like, dude, what are you gonna do with that money? Just buy more Hawaiian T-shirts?
Exactly. Honestly, yeah, that's what he should do. On his way in, Buzz picks a flower. He walks in. He puts the flower in a vase that fell, like takes out the dirty flowers, puts in the fresh one. He starts to investigate. As he goes by, you see Owl eyes glow. He gets down into the basement. He finds a bunch of stuff. He finds all the witch stuff.
Yes.
He goes upstairs, and I don't know if he notices it. I think he does. He notices that the flower is gone. The flower he put in the vase is gone. Either he notices it or the camera zooms in on it. I can't remember.
And do we get a paranormal scene here?
Yes,
a minor
he looks
one?
at the logbook. And then the logbook pages start turning on themselves, and a pen, like a fountain pen, drops from the ceiling and like lodges itself. And he's like, "Cool, bye." And
I'm out of here.
Yeah,
I do like the little bit of spookiness going on. What do you think, Kat?
yeah. I mean, I thought the very light spooky was nice. I think that this is a very accessible, comfortable movie. I also think it's got like some kitsch to it. And some fun with just things that were very appropriate to the era. Weird Uncle, check. Hawaiian T-shirt guy, check. Little girl audience surrogate, check.
Yeah.
Just spooky enough, like Ghostbusters level spooky, like nothing over the top.
Less than. Because Ghostbusters does get pretty scary, but I know what you're saying. Yeah. Because I watched, I think, Ghostbusters as a kid around the same time as this too. And yeah, I don't think I ever was I was scared of Ghostbusters as a movie, but I never got scared because of Ghostbusters. And the same is true for Tower of Terror. So I get what you're saying.
The very last thing we see before this commercial break is that the nanny peeks through the mirror. Did you gasp when she peeks through the mirror?
I forgot about that.
And it's super bad CG. It's really
awful.
goofy. It's like Halloween Town CG.
It should not have been in the movie when all the other scenes kind of look good.
Right?
Yeah, all the other stuff.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, oh, they should have done something a little bit different with that. Like instead of doing the like liquid mirror effect, she should have just like poked out as like a smoky specter, and that would have made more sense and fit with the rest of the movie instead of the liquid mirror.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Sam Raimi made super scary mirror scenes in the middle of a cabin with a box of scraps, and then you got Disney over here making the worst mirror thing ever.
Which is crazy because they're like really good at doing the whole Pepper's Ghost thing, like in the Haunted Mansion ride. So it's not like they can't do it.
I know.
I mean, I will say my one criticism is none of these ghosts look ghostly.
Oh, that's definitely true.
They're just people.
Yeah. They could have like put dust on them or something.
Yeah, it's one of those cases where like the fact that they exist when they're supposed to be dead ought to be scary, but as a movie that is not scary because they're not doing anything scary and they don't look scary.
They're just homies in old clothing.
They're homeless.
Right.
They're just
and
homeless.
they're in Hollywood.
I didn't say homeless. I said homies.
I said homeless.
Well,
and it gets weird.
I mean, is a hotel a home?
That is true.
No. It's a hotel.
Some of these characters lived in the hotel, sir. So
I will still call them homeless.
That's true. Okay, moving on. Buzz does something very stupid, and that's to read aloud from the magical spell book. Even if he doesn't think it's real, he shouldn't be reading out loud because honestly, you just never know. That's all I gotta say. Meanwhile, so like he's hanging out in the hammock, he's reading the spell book, and his sister's like, dude, can you help me with the garden? Like, can you help around the house? They don't even live together. Like the brother and sister don't even live together. So I don't know why the sister,
what's the
like
dynamic?
his sister is like, help me around the house. Like,
why is
are you
she
upset that he's not
babysitting
helping
her daughter
you?
at his house or at her?
Yeah, right.
Whose house are they at? Wait,
yeah.
like where?
They're at.
Well,
they're at.
I think it's two separate houses
It is.
because
It's two,
the one house is definitely a dude pad because it's got posters on the wall in the living room.
Mm-hmm.
What are you saying about our house, Kathryn?
I'm saying that a man lives here.
Listener, we are both looking at Melvin, and behind him are like I can see 6 movie posters directly behind him.
Oh no! I'm picking up my camera.
And a PETA cutout also next to him. It is 9 posters, in case you were curious, listening. So Buzz is reading this stupid spell book. The sister's like, would you just help me around the house? And he's like, but sister, this could be an actual story. I gotta go check it out. And Anna's like, I'm gonna go too. And mom is like, no, you're not. And she's like, well, yeah, I am. And then all of a sudden, Anna and Buzz are now going back to the hotel. This mom really doesn't have any control over her daughter, but that's fine. That's not what the story's about.
But it is weird. I'm glad you pointed it out.
It is weird. It's just strange. They get to the hotel, and Q's car is dead. Even though he says he's a car mechanic, apparently he's not a very good one.
Mm-hmm.
And Buzz asks about the ghost, and Q just, I guess, sort of answers like, I don't go in there, so I have no idea what's going on. Anna doesn't want to come out in the costume because Buzz, like, he still even though he had like some spooky stuff happen to him at the hotel, he still doesn't believe that it's legitimately haunted. So he's gonna take the story of what happened to everyone in the 1939 and use Anna. He got her a costume to dress in, and so he got her the costume to dress as Sally. And Anna's like, I don't want to do this. My friends are gonna see me. So she comes out. She's wearing like the same pink dress, and then this woman shows up. And it took me a hot second, but it's Jan from The Office.
Yes, it is.
I don't remember what her actual name is. I think it's Claire. Is her name Claire in the movie?
The actor's name is Melora Hardin.
So she's also in The Rocketeer, which is really fun. And so she wears a lot of the same outfits in The Rocketeer, and she also sings in The Rocketeer. So it's pretty fun. So she shows up and is like, I'm the one that you hired to, I guess, be the nanny. And Buzz is like, oh, man, you're too young. Like, the nanny is old and we're like gross and witchy. And Claire is like, oh, bummer. I'm just never going to get the part. I'm either too young, too old, too skinny, too fat, da 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 da. And Buzz is like, no, it's totally fine. We can make it work because, of course, she's gorgeous and Buzz just wants the girl. So he like convinces, they walk outside and they kind of like chat about it. So they go down to the kitchen to investigate. I don't know where the actress ends up, where Claire ends up, because then all of a sudden Buzz and Anna are investigating the kitchen. So he kind of looks around a little bit, and then Anna shows up behind him, scares him, and he like flashes a picture, like takes a picture of her really quick. She screams. They have a moment of like, oh, you scared me. And then almost immediately, a gurney, it's probably not a gurney because we're in a kitchen, but it looks like it's the rolling table, but I'm going to call it a gurney because there's a body on the gurney that's just rolling towards them. And Anna's like, oh, it's just a dummy. It's fine. And then the fingers twitch and he sits up with a butcher's knife in his hand and no head. And they scream and they run off.
This is scary. I'm a child. What is this?
I will say, like, obviously, at our age now, it's super goofy. We've seen more terrifying things. But I definitely feel like this was a good level of, like, spook for the age. Like, that's kind of scary. Like, seeing a body just roll up and then it doesn't have a head, but it's holding a knife in its hand. Like, all they really needed to add was maybe, like, some dripping blood from the knife, and then it would have been, like, terrifying.
It's weird because it has no head. So as a kid, you're like, where do I look? It's like the alien in Alien. It has no eyes. Where do I look? And then as a kid, you know knives are dangerous.
Right.
But in addition to this, isn't it before this that they look down the hallway and see the like fading image of the Shirley Temple girl.
Oh, you know what?
or
I
whatever.
think so.
Yeah.
Was it just
So
before
they
that?
feel, so it kind of builds up this idea. It might have been in the notes where you said you couldn't read it, but it's a good setup too for just as a
Yes.
kid, you'd be like, I can't go forward, I can't go back, I'm trapped. So it's
Yeah.
it's just like it's really the only scene in the film that's like trying to be really scary. There's like one
Mhm.
other a little later, but not so much. But I remember being like, as a kid, that was like the first like, that's so cool. Being scared is cool. So
Yeah.
so it's a cool scene.
Yeah.
It's, as an adult, it's like, if this was my first time, I'd be like, okay, whatever. But like, as a kid, it's pretty cool.
Enjoying this episode? Grab that share link and tell your friends. Word of mouth is the most effective way for a podcast to reach new listeners, so don't be shy. Share the episode wherever you can.
Here's a commercial break. They run out. Here's a commercial break. And then we open up with, I think like Buzz comes back out and he's like, he and Anna come running outside and Q and the actress are there. And Buzz is like, oh my gosh, it's real. It's real. It's real. They're actually ghosts. I'm going to figure out what's going on. So then he runs back to the newspaper lady and is like, dude, I got a story and it's real. And she basically is like, don't come back. Just leave. So she's not buying it. So he leaves, tail between his legs kind of thing, all that kind of stuff. But she is curious. So he does do like, he gives like the explanation of the story of like what happened and all that kind of stuff.
She does detective work.
Yeah, he does give her the name of Abigail Gregory. So then she's like, you know what? I am curious. So she calls her assistant and is like, get me all the information on this. We cut then to Abby back at the uncle's, I guess, apartment or home or whatever. And she's reading and looking through the spell book. And Buzz and Anna, they're all just kind of talking about like what they're going to do, what they're going to figure out. And Abby's like, the spell was only half good because this particular spell needs something from each person. And there was something for Sally because the nanny hated Sally.
Yeah.
But because there wasn't something for everybody else, it messed up the spell. And now they're stuck in limbo, essentially.
Yeah, they're mostly dead. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's like, I can break it, but I need something from everybody else. And this is where in my notes I'd put that, like, if I could like take from my brain and add to my notebook the gif of like bombastic side eye, I would put it here. Because that's like all I was thinking. I was just like, side eye. Why is no one questioning this?
You've seen a movie before. That's why.
I know. Exactly.
Why does she know so much about this witch stuff?
Right? Like, come on.
Yeah. I imagine the Necronomicon is a page turner. I'm just saying,
Yeah,
it may be turning its own pages, as we saw earlier with the checkbook,
nice.
but the checkout book. But
I like that. And then Buzz is sitting there reading through the book again, and Anna's like, "Why do you want to do this?" And I'm like, "Girl, you were talking to him like about doing a real story earlier, so why are you questioning this?" And he's like,
Halloween is cool.
That's just true. And he's like, "I haven't written about anything I believe in a long time." So we have a little bit more of a motivation on his part now that he's like found something. They get back to the hotel. Q gives the bellboy hat to them, and then Abby ends up taking it. He lets them in, and I'm just like, Abby is so sus at this point, and no one's doing anything, but whatever. The actress has come back. She and Buzz start to flirt. Anna goes and starts to investigate the hotel herself to find the things for each of the people. And this is where before it was really easy to take notes because I was like, everything's happening in nice little chunks. Now we jump around a lot. So
Yep.
Basically, I'm going to kind of split it, and we're going to do this really quick. So Buzz and Claire are just kind of walking around, and they're kind of sharing a bit of their life story. Claire's like, I wanted to be a singer, and like, this is only my like real second job because the other one didn't really work out and all that kind of stuff. And Buzz is like, yeah, you and me are pretty similar. I'm not that great of a hotshot writer. So they bond a little bit.
She is such a manic pixie dream girl. It's amazing.
Oh, sure.
I didn't make this joke when we were talking or watching the movie, Kat, but just like watching it, I'm like, oh my gosh, Kat's probably on fire right now. This is like the worst thing she's ever seen in her entire life.
This like regular Joe Schmo with his jaw on the floor, like pretty blondly.
Like it is just like, it's so like, and he's so lame. He's so lame. So like, it's just so funny how she plays it up. Like, oh, you're such a good writer. Like,
Yeah.
what?
Well, yeah, because then it goes.
You see such a good writer, name 5 writers. Like, it is so stupid how much, like, it's so funny. So, like, as a kid, it's like, it's this, everything is super simple. And, like, that works, like, as a kid when you're watching it, because you're like, oh, this is movies.
All that has to happen is your brain has to click and go, oh, he likes her.
You like her.
So then the last thing they really talk about before I get to what Anna is doing intermixed in the scenes with this is that the actress definitely is like, don't you want to help the ghosts? Like, isn't that what this is kind of all about? Like what you're trying to get with all the stuff? And Buzz is like, nah, this is a great story. And then of course the actress is like all sad looking. And I'm like, dude, read the room. Now, Anna, she was sitting there and waiting for them to come back from doing their photo shoot. And she's like, you know what? I'm just going to go on my own. So she goes in.
Yeah.
She goes into the lobby and she looks at the logbook, finds who she's looking for, and then goes behind the desk into like little mailboxes and finds eyeglasses for, I assume, the older gentleman, the distinguished gentleman who was on the elevator. I don't remember his name. So then after getting the glasses, she finds like the little piece of paper for
where one of the room numbers is. So they
for
can
one
go.
of the room numbers to get the luggage, and it has the name on it. And then all of a sudden, spooky stuff starts happening, and the ghosts are now surrounding her. So the bellhop, the distinguished gentleman, and the nanny are all kind of surrounding her and like scaring her a little bit and all that kind of stuff. She's getting a little frightened. She's like, I do want to help you, but like they're not getting the memo. And then all of a sudden, the elevator behind her opens up, and there's like hellfire flames all over the place, and she's freaking out, and they're getting closer, and she's like, but I want to help you. A elevator, very nice.
Thank you.
And then all of a sudden, like, things kind of close up, and they're like, wait, you want to help us? And Sally, who's not part of the trio of scaring, she kind of appears later, she's like, yeah, she wants to help us, da 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 da. So the ghosts now know they're there to help. So we find like the ghosts were trying to scare them to like get them away, I guess I don't really know, like, why. I mean, I guess that wouldn't they want help? But I guess maybe they just don't know if someone is there to help or just to be annoying or something, which is totally fair. Totally fair. They're also dead, so maybe there's not a lot of brain things going on in there.
It's very strange too, because I know I gave you a hard time for saying it, but it's like, yeah, a hotel isn't really a home. Even if they were like living in the home, it's not like the 90s Casper movie where like it's very obvious that Casper and his brothers are haunting the house to keep people away from like their family home. They're like, like, you know, they're like, hey, this is our spot. It ain't much. It's slimy. It's gross, but get out of our house.
It's honest work.
So here, this is another scene where we're getting a little bit of this person and then a little bit of that person. So we're going to start with this person, and this person is Miss Perry. She's on her little investigation. She finds out that Abby is living at, like, at first I thought it was an old folks home, but then she's been there since she was like 12. So it's actually most likely some sort of asylum, which is something we don't have now, but maybe we did in the 90s. I don't remember. I was too young to know. And so Miss Perry is just kind of asking questions of the guy who, I guess, runs the place. She has a gift for her because it is now Halloween, so it is Abby's birthday. So as they're still walking, she's asking more and more questions. And then it turns out Abby is Sally's sister. Shocker. Ooh. And Miss Perry's like, wait, what? And then he gets a phone call and he leaves. She's now in Abby's room and like decides to do a little snooping. And she sees like a big chest in the middle of Abby's room, opens it up, starts digging through it and seeing some different stuff, and then sees that there's a false top, unfolds it, and there's
which,
like,
as a kid, is so cool.
I know, it's the cool. I wanted
stuff
one of
like
those
that is so
bad.
cool as a kid.
What's not cool is that there's like newspapers and photos of Sally, and it's been like written over psychotically with like red and black marker, and I don't know, I'm sure it says maybe die or something all over it. And then she's got a doll that she like decapitated. So Abby hates
and it makes a little
Sally.
squeaky noise.
Yeah,
and the head
so
pops
funny. Yeah.
Abby does not like Sally.
Yeah, she hates her sister Sally.
Meanwhile, back at the hotel, they're still looking around. Anna has the little slip of luggage paper. Buzz ends up coming back in. And they're looking through all the luggage to try to find it because now they need this other person's thing. This is the pretty lady in the elevator. Who goes with the distinguished gentleman. They're looking for her luggage. They find her luggage. She starts snooping and goes, I need to find something that belongs to her. Meanwhile, she's picking up a hairbrush. She's picking up a compact. She's picking up literally everything that belongs to this woman. So I don't know exactly what she's looking for because she could have just used the hairbrush, was my very first thought. So as she's digging, she finds a locket. And she opens it and goes, Uncle Buzzy, you better see this. He starts to pass it off to him, and he sees it, and he gets that shocked look on his face. And then all of a sudden, the champagne bottle that he was playing with 5 seconds ago rattles and pops, and then gets picked up and poured, and the distinguished gentleman just magically appears. He doesn't look ghostly, but he appears. And as he's presenting, he's ghosty, and he starts pouring the champagne. They start chatting, and then they're the Buzzy and Anna are like, yeah, we know who did it. We know that it was the nanny, blah, blah, blah. And then Nanny's like, did you summon me? And she walks up, and Anna gets super mad. She's like, it was you. You hated her and you wanted her to die. And then you killed everybody else. She gets big mad. And then everyone's like, are you kidding? The nanny loves Sally. And then Sally shows up and runs and hugs her and all that kind of stuff. And they're looking at each other adoringly. And it's actually really cute. And they're like, huh? And then all of a sudden, Claire appears. And not because she walked in, but because she made a grand entrance. Actually, I think she came in before the nanny, but it makes more sense if she came in after. So we're going to say she came in after. And they're like, oh, shocker, Claire, you're a ghost?
Also a ghost. Hey, listener, we've got a mailbag now. Open those show notes, scroll down a little, and you'll see a mailbag link. Press it and send us a text with a question and your first name, and we'll answer it in a future episode. So if any questions pop up while you're listening to the rest of this episode, you know what to do. We'd love to hear from you. All right, so they learn that the nanny wasn't the one, because there's no way. The nanny loves her.
Yeah.
There's no way the nanny was the witch. And they're like, well, then who could it have been? And then they pretty quickly realize, is this when they realize that it was
who it is?
Abby?
I don't know. I don't think so. Or no, maybe,
Okay,
no,
so
I think they do. I think maybe they do sort of, but they're not 100%. They have to fix the elevator. Because they have to get, so the ghosts are we have to get to the party. That's where we were going. We have to get to the party on the 12th floor, but the elevator only gets to 11. And we've tried everything.
The home
we've
stretch
tried the
here.
stairs, we've tried the elevator itself, and then we've tried the service elevator. We cannot get past the 11th floor. So they have to fix the elevator to make it work. And the only person they can get that to is Q. Buzz changes his mind. Is that when he changes his mind and decides he wants to write the story?
So this is when his editor, girlfriend, woman, past lover, she shows up and is like, because she knows he's there. It's it was Abby. So this is when they learn, it was Abby the whole time. Abby's the one who did it. You were right. Abby did know about it and also has evidence because she's the one who perpetrated the murder and disappearance of these people.
They're at Buzz's place having this conversation. That's right, because that's where Q
they
has
kind of go
the
back
blueprints
home.
And all. Okay,
and then that's when she's like, "But tomorrow's Halloween, so what I want is for you to have this be what's publishing in our newspaper tomorrow morning."
She doesn't believe the whole ghostly part of it. She's just write me the story.
And so, and that's that's what he wanted. That was one of the things he desired in the beginning. Plus he wanted her. So it is, this thing that comes in at the 11th hour to try to ruin things. So he goes with the editor to write the story, and Kirsten Dunst with Q goes to the hotel because she's we promised on Halloween. Right. Because if it on Halloween is the party at 8
is the party, and that's what 8:05
or something. 8:05 a.m. or p.m. I don't know. But they have to get it done before then or else they have to wait another year to do it. And they just don't want to wait another year.
I do want to say about that scene. I guess I started getting my notes really weird. But that whole time when the editor is like, Buzzy, you got to write this story, and Buzzy's getting all into it. Anna's trying to get his attention, like, Uncle Buzzy, and then she yells at him like, Uncle Buzzy. And I actually, weirdly enough, like, sometimes there are like little moments and little scenes that really stand out to me as like really good, and for some reason I really like the
Good scene.
and like I said, like, it's like she just very forcefully says that and has a look on her face like, I can't believe you're about to do this. She's like, you want to help the ghosts, right? Like, because this is also important to her, and not just, it's like turned into like she wants him to be able to write a good story and everything, but now it's about other people, like actual other people who are in trouble, even if they are ghosts. So I really like the anger she kind of put behind delivering that line. I thought it was really good. So Perry and Buzzy go off to the thing, and Anna is like, we're going. And Q is like, I ain't going without Buzzy. And she's like, yeah, you are. So of course
you're
he
coming.
does. And then they're all like, but where's Abby? And little did they know she was in the closet. So Abby steps out of the closet, does her really creepy laugh. She takes the hair from the book. That is Sally's hair that was in the book. This old lady actress is fantastic. I just thought we should all know that. She's great.
Yeah, it's Amzie Strickland. I don't know if anyone listening is familiar with her, but she's in like well over. She's in 80 movies, it looks like. She's in a lot.
Good for her.
And so she works pretty much all the time. So
Q and Anna are at the hotel, and they just need to make sure that the power works, because the only way they can get the elevator working is if the power works. The power works. Whoop-de-doo. Buzzy is trying to write his story, but he's starting to feel conflicted about it. Q meets the bellhop, who I cannot remember his name, but he meets his granddad. It's a super cute scene, because then he like hides behind Anna, and like they have like a little exchange, and it's like kind of adorable. Of course, Buzz changes his mind and he leaves for the hotel, but he drags Perry with him. Like the whole time,
yeah, I'm not
like,
sure why.
He just like drags her, and I'm like, what if she just doesn't want to be there?
Maybe for
like,
vindication.
It's fine, I guess.
Maybe as vindication for the ghosts, but who knows?
So they're trying to fix the elevator. Q, Anna, and the granddad ghost trying to fix the elevator. Meanwhile, Abby in like this cute little witch cape is sneaking in all hee with her little book to the basement so she can do her spell. She's being sneaky, and then the party music starts for like it's like a ghostly party happening and all that kind of stuff is what that's what the ghosts are waiting for. So they're like, oh, we're running out of time. We see the clock a couple of times just to remind us that we're on a time limit or a deadline. Buzzy tries to find the book and then finds out that it was Abby, that something in the hotel, I don't know, is with it in the hotel. My handwriting got really messy at this point.
At some point, the elevators are fixed, so the ghosts run inside of them. But this is around the same time that I think Abby is like has already done the curse, because she's broken in, and her daughter is not her daughter. Pardon, Kirsten Dunst ended up finding her doing it.
There's like lightning. Yeah. Anna finds her first. It's already too late. Yeah, the spell has kind of already started. So then Anna tries to find the ghost before telling them to get on the elevator. She gets on with everyone, but Sally stays off the elevator. So right now it's 4 ghosts and a person in an elevator that is cursed.
I thought this was a cool like development at the end to basically like the one that Abby wants to kill, her sister, exits the elevator. So like she did the curse again to be like, now when they get on the elevator, all of them are included, and the elevator being the conduit of their like death will then kill them. But now she's
it's
not
supposed to crash.
And the movie set up what'll happen. Like we understand the lore enough to know like, okay, Sarah's gonna live. She'll be just fine as a ghost, but won't be dead like in hell, because they basically say like, then I'm gonna send them to hell. They just don't say hell. They're like the bad place or whatever, because it's a Disney movie. They don't call it hell until Haunted Mansion 2003. But then you get the live living girl there, which then draws our main character Buzzy to take it very seriously. And then Abby also is like, I just hate my sister, not your niece. So she's also worried too. I thought that was a cool like added tension and good narrative choices.
Yeah, it's a good setup. But I do wonder, like, would it have actually still crashed? Because so like the original intent of the spell to kill Sally was that the elevator was going to crash down and kill her. But because there were other people in the book that were not included in the spell, it just kind of zapped them away into this perpetual limbo of not going up to the 12th floor.
Yeah.
So then this spell again still has all of their things in the spell now, except something for Anna. So doesn't that mean the spell still wouldn't have worked, and then Anna would have just become a ghost, and then
Yes,
she would
that's
have
what I
been
mean.
trapped?
Yeah.
So yeah, I just
So we know the consequences that it'll catch her. Like, that's really bad.
Mhm.
I think your ghost logic is on point, though. That she would remain trapped forever as
Right?
a ghost, but it would be kind of embarrassing to be the only ghost not dressed up for this
Yeah.
party, and you're just dressed in like 90s overalls and
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, like
I like
parachute
Nirvana,
pants or
man.
whatever.
Whatever, man.
Who's
Everyone else is all
Nirvana?
dolled up, and you're just
Whatever,
there, like
dude.
whatever, man.
Pearl Jam.
All right. So then
Y2K. Want some quick updates on the podcast? Follow the Cinematic Doctrine Instagram for cool posts and story updates. Press the link in the show notes or search Cinematic Doctrine, that's one word, in your Instagram app. Oh, and we're on Threads. Check us out there too.
Buzz and Perry finally show up, and Buzz is dragging Perry out of the car through the gates of the hotel down to the basement where they find Abby. Or no, they get into the lobby, and like the elevator hasn't moved yet.
We're a little ahead of this though. We've already
Yeah, but
we've
some of
set
this
stuff
is
up.
important. Some of this is important. So like they he finds out that she's in the elevator, so they run downstairs to find Abby, and then that's when I think Buzz has already figured out that they're sisters or whatever. But Sally has followed them downstairs because he sees Sally
That's right,
and
yeah.
is like, wait, where's Anna? Well, she's in the elevator. Oh, shoot. So they all run downstairs, and Sally waits a second and then just kind of like cutely trots after them. I thought that was really cute, and like runs downstairs to the basement. And that's when Sally sees Abby. But because Abby is an old lady, she doesn't really recognize Abby, but
I
Abby
like
recognized
this
Sally. This I
scene.
loved. I thought this was
This
really
was really
sweet.
good.
Because like Abby was not
Mm.
expecting that. She didn't realize like I think until she sees Sally, like Buzz is like, my niece is on the elevator. Da, da, da. She's like, well, it's too late. The spell's already taken. And then she realizes, oh, but the person I'm trying to actually get rid of is standing right in front of me. So like, this is
Yeah,
actually
this was
very
great.
bad. So she starts kind of like wringing her hands and freaking out, and like Buzz is then talking to Sally, in turn talking to Abby, like, hey, what is it about your sister? Like, what would you say to your sister if you could see her right now? And she's like, well, I love her, and I was really excited to celebrate her birthday party. It was supposed to be a surprise. Look, I even got her a gift. And then you're like, oh, Abby
It's
done
great
goofed.
stuff.
All they had to do was talk. What didn't you know?
Yes.
Communication is great.
Yeah, this is awesome. I thought this was so good. It's because Ghost Sarah doesn't recognize Abby as her sister,
Mm-hmm.
so she's just like, what's wrong with this witch lady, but isn't being mean. She's just like, what's going on? And then but Abby knows everything and is just like basically being confronted with her victim, and like the dynamics have completely changed. You figure Abby has carried like the weight of like unfulfilled vengeance, but also perhaps shame. And so like there's so much like interesting stuff here. And then Amzie Strickland, I don't know if her career is one of like successful acting, but like this scene is really good acting from her, where she has all these emotions on her face. And then to add it's funny to think of the insult to injury that like it was her surprise birthday party,
right?
Like that's
that
funny
was for her.
but then in the moment though, it's like I didn't laugh because like it's funny to talk about, but I didn't laugh watching the movie because like all of the emotional beats that need to happen here totally work, to the point that it's like I don't think I definitely didn't cry, but like I definitely felt
did.
like 20% choked up, because it's like oh man, this is like good stuff, especially how it resolves when like the characters are in the elevator, they realize Buzzy and the other crew get into the
service elevator to meet them because they've stopped I think
At
they got
floor
up
11.
to the 11th. Yeah, they stopped, so they ride the service elevator up to the 11th, and like they're trying to figure out how they can counteract the spell and change it. Because like, yes, they obviously want to save the niece, but then it's like, but we still want to help the ghost. We still want to figure this out.
This is cool stuff.
And so we didn't really mention it at the beginning, but Buzz is reading the book, and I don't know if he's technically reading any spells, but he's reading what would counter the spell, and I don't remember the exact words.
Something like doing the opposite of the spell.
Yeah, the contrary or something will break the spell. And so he says that to Abby, and they're like, I don't really know what any of that means. And so they're like, well, we got to save the human being who is still alive. So they rush off, and Abby and Sally, they all follow. So it's Abby, Sally, Q, Buzz, and Miss Perry all on the service elevator. And they're trying to figure out how to get to the other elevator, and they're in the same shaft. They're in the same elevator shaft. And Q is like, well, there's a service door right here. And so they bend down, and there's a service door. They yell across, and they're Anna reaches out, and they're like kind of reaching for each other. But because the spell is still happening, there's that thunderstorm outside that's starting to all spark, and there's a little bit of a shift with the elevator. So we get our little spooky, oh my gosh, is the elevator going to fall? They're going to get squished. Like,
It's cool
we
stuff.
get that moment of tension. Anna does get over to the human side, minus the fact that Sally's there. Meanwhile, Sally and Abby are kind of having a little moment together, talking with each other. Like, oh, Abby's like, Sally, will you forgive me? Like, I'm really sorry. We see Abby start to give the bracelet, which was going to be Abby's gift, to her. At the same time, we're seeing the clock tick, because this all has to happen before 8:05.
Yep.
Like, we're on a time limit here. It does hit 8:05, and they start falling. Gravity does not exist in this movie, because they are all standing totally fine inside the elevator. In real life, they'd be smooshed to the top, but this is fine. This is a Disney movie after all. We can't be that scary. And during the fall, Sally is like, I forgive you, Abby. And then we see the magical twinkle pixie dust lights like go to the bottom of the elevator, and everyone's fine. I don't remember exactly how it happens, but everyone is
It's
fine.
cool.
They all get off the elevators. And I think that was even enough then that like yeah, well, it was. Again, the spell is now broken.
So the spell's broken. They go up, and yeah, like Abby, the culmination of Abby and Sarah with the forgiveness is touching and sweet, and I like that. Because like the performance really sells this idea of like she truly has contrition, which is sweet. And then they like vanish in particular, whereas all the other the other people like get off the elevator, but then they're able to go up to the party, and everybody has like their moment up there, which I also like too. Like to me, all of these little details allude to like, oh, the script probably had some really good stuff. They made it more accessible, and then gave it a DCOM budget, which is why it looks the way it does. Because like it has a resolution. It isn't just like, oh, we won, we saved the day.
Like, oh, bye. They're going up the elevator, and we don't even get to see the party. We get to see the party. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We get to go to the party. What's her name gets to sing a song.
Claire.
The bellhop gets to meet up with his dad,
his father,
which then lets the two of them meet Q, who is their grandson / great grandson.
Great grandson, yeah.
And then just before it's and then the man who is in a relationship with Claire proposes, who said like, this is what I was waiting to do this whole time.
This is what I've been waiting for 60 years to do. And I'm just like,
really
this
sweet.
is where I was getting choked up. And I was like,
yeah, I thought that like the stuff works. It's so bizarre.
It does.
Like the whole movie is like totally cannon fodder, but like when the stuff works, like it's still effective. So that's pretty neat. Because like, you're like, oh my gosh, they've been waiting 70 years as ghosts. So each person almost had like things they were desiring that they were prevented from getting by not going to the party. It's sweet. It's charming. It's good stuff.
The nanny gets to see everyone kind of come back together, and then she disappears. Sally does disappear twice, technically, because she connects with her parents, and they disappear. And then later on, Abby shows up as a little girl, and is like, am I late? And then Sally shows up, and like they walk off and blend into the light together.
Sally, that's her name? I kept saying Sarah.
Sally, totally fine.
But what were you going to say, Kat?
Oh no, just same sort of thing. Like I really liked how the nanny gets resolution. Especially since the movie starts with the bait and switch of like, oh, she's this evil, awful hag, and then actually she's a very nice lady. She just happens to wear a lot of black.
And she's got a little bit of an RBF at the beginning of the movie and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But like when you learn a little bit more about it, it's just like she cares so much for this little girl and wants her well-being. Like, I would hope you'd have a nanny that has a little bit of an RBF, like the bulldog kind of feel for a child actress. Like, that's totally fine. But I like that she's got like this little adoring nature.
Yeah, it's sweet. So yeah, everyone gets their moment, and then Abby and Sally, they vanish away as kid versions of themselves. Well, Abby's kid version, which is nice.
I guess Abby just died on the service elevator at the end of the spell. Like, when the spell was resolved, she just kind of like died.
Yeah, I guess like something about what happened, like it released her.
Yeah, which is actually kind of sweet. Yeah.
And in her case, yeah, she does what a movie needs for someone to get a good ending, which is like repentance, which is like doing something good that outweighs the bad in some regard. And then, but I think don't they just kind of leave, don't they?
They go up the stairs and kind of look down on our main characters and like wave goodbye and then disappear. But they go off specifically together. I think Sally comes up and goes, "Happy birthday," and then they go off together.
Been itching for Cinematic Doctrine merch? Check out the support tiers on Patreon. We're offering merch to those who support at select tiers. So head on over to patreon.com/Cinematic Doctrine and share your support. There's a link in the show notes too.
So where do we go? Let's start with Kat. Party pleaser, party pooper.
I mean, I think it's fine enough. I think party pleaser. It has all of the story beats that it needs to be competent. It has the DCOM budget. It also has very neat little details, like the fact that part of it is shot in the Disney parks. And Escape from Tomorrow thought it was being really cool. No. No, just very cringe.
No.
Because this was done above board, and the movie really benefits from that.
Totally. Yeah, I also do party pleaser. I think the movie's quaint and like innocent. It's also like, I feel like as someone who grew up watching like Disney Channel, Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, and having like a cursory like experience with this film, I think I'm not alone in that. So like if I were to have people over to watch this, as is my grading curve for all movies, this would be kind of a fun one where people would be like, "Well, you still have that? That's crazy." And they would be like, "I love that movie." And it's like, you liked it, but I'm not going to take it that seriously. I'll be like, "Yeah, it's pretty cool." So like I would put it on and like we would talk over it, that kind of thing, but still have fun. And then, like all that stuff is pretty cool. And it's like 89 minutes. It's super short. So party pleaser, like it's not a great movie in terms of the party pleasers that I've given out, but it's not the newest Haunted Mansion from like last year. That was so boring. So like and like really frustrating to watch. So this doesn't have anything like that in any regard. So yeah, this is party pleaser for me. What about you, Shirl?
I agree. Although I really was thinking, like, do I want to be the contrarian? No, I think it's a party pleaser for sure. I think especially like there's just something about that ending scene when they all get to the party that I really like.
It's cool.
It's just very tender. It's a nice tender moment amongst all the characters, plus the party people who have been there waiting. I think it definitely could benefit from some like fun edits if they ever decide to like redo it. Like still keep the nice almost campy feel to it. Like don't deviate necessarily from this like potential PG rating, but like you were saying, Mel, like it sounds like they had like a really good script and then they had to just kind of make it more accessible. I feel like there's still like they could almost flesh it out a little bit. Not fully like let's do a whole rewrite like we did with Synchronic last time, but I see the bones of it, and I think it could do really well if they ever decide to do a remake, as long as they don't mess it up. Like you don't even need to change the story. Like the story of it,
no, not really.
Fine.
Yeah.
Well, so Taika Waititi is doing, as of right now, with Scarlett Johansson in the film, a Tower of Terror film.
Okay.
So, but I know that, he's pretty tired right now. He worked himself to the bone and absolutely burned out any goodwill he had from his early projects.
Maybe the visual effects department will still do one of those water mirror effects.
Or scary floating heads like from Thor.
I guess yeah, right. We'll see.
Hey there, listener. Want to influence the podcast? Head on over to patreon.com/cinematic doctrine and support the show for $3 a month. In doing so, you'll be able to vote on a movie poll that picks a film we discuss each month. So jump on over there and have your voice heard.
So, final segment, recommendations. Let's go around again. Kathryn, what you got?
Surprisingly, I have one right away. I watched the limited series Made on Netflix. That was incredibly well put together. It stars Margaret Qualley, who I think she gives a really great performance in this series. The main premise is a young woman wakes up in the middle of the night, and you see that she's in bed with her partner, her husband, spouse, whoever, and she bolts her eyes open, goes to the closet, grabs a bag, goes into the next room, grabs her toddler, grabs the car keys, and goes. And then you find out over the course of the series that she was leaving an unsafe situation. So, like, definitely if you're sensitive to things like domestic violence or family dysfunction in any shape, might not be a great fit for you. But as far as like a good drama, a good quick watch, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm gonna recommend a movie that both Kathryn and I actually just watched. We watched a couple movies. Finally, I've watched movies that aren't just for the show. But I watched a movie that was just put on Shudder a couple of days ago called Oddity. It's from Damian McCarthy. He's done another movie called Caveat that I'm kind of interested in. I really liked a lot that Oddity did. I'm still figuring out what I think about it, but I really do land positively on it. The premise is super simple. The movie opens up with like a woman is refurbishing a property that she owns that they're going to live in soon. It's the middle of the night and she's about to like finish up, but someone knocks on the door. Or she goes out to her car, comes back inside. She goes, but then a knock on the door happens. She opens up this little hatch, and this man with one eye and the other eye is kind of like a whatever they're called, like replacement eye. So he looks intimidating. Says, when you were out at your car, someone just went into your house. Like, you need to get out of your house. But now she's like, what are you talking? I'm not going to leave my house. You're freaking me out. And so she's like, I'm going to call the police if you don't leave. And he's like, fine, call the police. That's great. I'll even do it for you if you gave me to. Like, I will run to town and get the police for you. And so it's a really great anxious setup of like, who's in this house? What's going on? And then we flash forward it seems like a year. And then we follow that character's sister, who is a blind medium, who then is trying to figure out who killed her sister a year ago. So we don't know what took place. We just know that something might have happened during that interaction. And it's just a really, there's very limited characters, very limited setting, and very limited things in the film. But for myself, like, I really latched on to some like really cool characterization, really cool pacing. The movie's non-linear in certain ways. It's linear, but it jumps around comfortably. And there's just a lot of cool stuff that kind of happens. It's got this unsettling wooden man that's on the cover that like is in the film, and a lot of the marketing that the medium seems to carry around. But it's a cool little horror mystery story with some good eerie and unsettling material that I found very compelling and interesting. And then Cheryl, what do you got?
I probably recommended this before, but because the second season is out, I'm going to recommend it again in conjunction with season 2. So Rings of Power on Amazon Prime. If you go online, most people are going to be like, it's awful and blasphemous and all that kind of stuff. Thomas might even say the same thing, my husband, because he's a big Lord of the Rings nerd. But coming from someone who is not, like, I'm knowledgeable, but I've not read the Silmarillion. My husband's read it like 20 times before. So like I can ask him questions and he's able to do the lore of all of Middle Earth very quickly. I think it's awesome. But the Rings of Power takes a lot of its information more from the appendices of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It does not have the rights to the Silmarillion, though it is trying to tell some of the story of the Silmarillion. Basically, it's the story of the creation of the rings for the dwarves, the 7 rings of the dwarves, the 9 rings for the men, and the 3 rings of the elves, and then eventually the 1 ring. Season 2 then goes a little bit more into the creation specifically for the dwarves and the men. I think they're doing a really good job introducing these characters, some of these characters that we're familiar with, mostly Elrond and Galadriel because they're elves, so they're really old. And then Sauron, the rings, and trying to understand what they're doing and all that kind of stuff. And I think they're doing a very good job telling those stories with what information they have from the appendices, since they can't do everything. There are a couple episodes that are not as good as others. We're following some like proto-hobbits in some of the scenes. That is definitely just completely made up by the creators of the show, which is totally fine. And then like Thomas and I I'm asking Thomas mostly like, do you know where this might be going? And like he's told me pretty much the whole like the actual story from the Silmarillion of the creation of the rings and everything kind of leading up to it. So I'm like, do you think this is how they're going to do it? Do we see it going in this direction? Do you like the changes that they're making? And that's been actually really fun to do with him, like ask him about like the different changes and all that. I think honestly my favorite thing about the show is the filming, the editing. The costumes are gorgeous. I think they're great. The acting is really good, especially this second season. I think it's much better than the first, although I did like the first. But if you do watch it, go in with like an open mind. It is not the Jackson films. They're connected, obviously, because it's the same world, the same lore and all that kind of stuff, but they're not trying to like be like the Jackson films and all that kind of stuff. So you definitely want to go in separating the two, but I highly recommend it if you want to revisit Middle Earth and learn something a little bit different. But then definitely do your research on the way things actually do happen so that you don't embarrass yourself and be like, but that's what the Rings of Power said, and then you get smacked upside the head and be like, no, Tolkien would be rolling in his grave. I'm like, I don't know if Tolkien would be rolling in his grave. Like, but I do like talking to someone who actually has like knowledge on this entire world, and he can be like, that's a little weird, that's strange, but I recommend it. I think it's very good. That's my 2 cents.
Thanks so much for checking out this episode of Cinematic Doctrine. If you enjoyed this episode, consider leaving a review and subscribing to the podcast. And as mentioned before, Cinematic Doctrine has a Patreon. For as little as $3 a month, you're opted into a once-a-month movie poll where you decide a movie we discuss on the podcast. There are other unique benefits that come with supporting the podcast, so be sure to check that out at patreon.com/Cinematic Doctrine. A special shout out to those who support at the Art House Theater tier on Patreon. Thank you so much, Mom, Dad, Melanie, Shirleon, and Thomas. You guys are the best, and your continued monetary support is greatly appreciated. Until next time, stay cool. Want some Cinematic Doctrine swag? You're in luck. We've got 3-inch Cinematic Doctrine logo stickers exclusive for Patreon supporters. Perfect for your travel mug or laptop. Head over to patreon.com/Cinematic Doctrine, link in the show notes, and choose the Independent Theater tier. Doing so will net you other perks too. But let's be real, the podcast stickers are the coolest perk. So get yourself some podcast stickers by supporting on Patreon.